Hello
Boom!
and welcome to ProPresenter Power Talks. We're
Woo!
back, back on
Another
our regularly
Monday,
scheduled day.
our
On
regularly
Monday,
scheduled
back on.
broadcast.
That's right.
Yep.
Steve, ProPresenter Poppy, Dirks. What is up?
What's up, Jedi Master? Sheik Mozart.
And you know how I do.
How do you do?
Had that conference last week.
Yeah? How'd that go?
Had a lot of fun at the Children's Pastors Conference. It was great, man. A lot of great conversations, a lot of great connections. It was just fun, man. I love. It's funny because here at Church Visuals, we're all kind of at different parts of the world. You know, we all work remotely, um, and as an extrovert, it can be very difficult to. I'm not good at getting things done by
Mm.
myself, like without people around me. So I always have to have the TV on or something. But man, when I'm in those conferences, I come alive, Steve.
Yeah. Well, I saw you coming alive. A lot of reels coming out of you guys, and you,
A
you
lot of
and
reels.
you and Carl were flowing with all the stuff
Yeah,
coming
we
out of
went to
there.
Disney Springs. Just yeah, we're content creators here at
Yeah.
Church Visuals.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
influencers.
Yeah. So yeah,
You,
absolutely.
you could
Well,
say that.
it was great.
What's it like in the Steel City right now, Steve?
Dude, it's great, man. We're hoping our Steelers can do
Yeah.
something this evening and keep the playoff run
Oh yeah, the
alive. And
Steelers
it's cold.
tonight.
Don't act like
Man,
you
I've been
know
looking forward to this
anything.
for
Don't act like you know anything about the
man. I've
Steelers.
It's here. It's like we've been waiting for this moment, and here it is.
Okay. Well, I need to
It's
tell
exciting.
everyone who watches this that Shake knows nothing about the sport of football. So, what?
Not true. Steve, how many times have you quizzed me because you doubt how much I know about football? So you quiz me on football, and how many times have I blown your mind?
You've blown my mind up because you know nothing about it. But yeah, you've blown it up. But it's
Well,
okay. I don't know
Steve, we're
anything
not
about
here to talk about
wrestling.
football.
I don't know anything about wrestling. You don't know anything
Yeah,
about football. We'll be
the
cool. We'll be
greatest
cool. You know?
professional wrestling is the only legitimate sport. I've said it, I believe it,
And
and
you're
I
gonna
won't take it
you
back.
okay. Well, there you heard it. That is the Jedi Master right there has spoken. He has made
That's
the
right.
call. Well, dude,
And
so
you know,
we had our
Steve,
first person ask us a question. Did you see that?
yes, we did. Yes, I saw it on our YouTube page. And the question is this by John Matt 5660. John Matt, thanks for reaching out. And here's a question that he had. First of all, he said, "Thank you for sharing your expertise. It appears that our library of hundreds of images and backgrounds causes ProPresenter to boot slowly and perform slowly. Is there a suggested media count for the library? And is there a suggested hard drive storage organization strategy prior to importing?"
Which is a great question. That's awesome, John. So, yeah, that was an awesome question. I'm sorry we didn't like answer in the chat,
Yeah,
but we thought that we would just cover it on the drop today. So hopefully you get a chance to
right.
watch this and check it out. So I thought I'd just show you guys kind of a little bit, and Shake, feel free to chime in here. But
Sure.
so there's a couple things with media management that I do to try to keep things running. And there's first off, you need to know how big your hard drive is on your computer. And so if you are
Mhm.
running a baseline computer and you've only got, you know, say it's a baseline Mac and it's got 256 gigabytes or 500 gigabytes, that's probably going to fill up pretty quick. And so if you're hitting, maxing that out, there's a good chance that's a huge problem. So one, you need to know this hard drive space of your computer to help you get an understanding of probably what kind of content you could hold. But two, I would say this is why I mentioned last week, and as we move forward in this, I'll probably always continue to mention when topics like this come up. But having an organizational structure in your media library is great because you can then clean stuff out and kind of purge things as you need. But you can purge what you need to purge. So for me, in the church that I help serve each week with putting stuff together, I'm not going to really like delete current slides that are running and operating on screen because I need those to be in my
Yeah.
library. And I'm not going to probably delete current countdowns I'm using and post pre and post stuff, sermon graphics, service videos I'm probably going to leave in here for a couple of weeks to make sure, we have access to those if needed. But worship backgrounds, I will clean up and clean out, as I go periodically. So that's why I would suggest having a worship background library itself. And then what you can do is you can purge stuff as you go throughout the entire day. So you can purge stuff, you can clean stuff up and make stuff, cohesive and only what you need. So I always tell people try to keep your worship backgrounds organized in a folder themselves, and then that'll help you keep track of that stuff just there, and then clean that stuff up. And then two, what I would say is I try to always delete stuff every quarter, or depending on how big your hard drive is, you may need to do it more frequently. You may need to do it less frequently. The church that I'm helping with right now, their hard drive space it's a terabyte iMac 27-inch. So I don't delete it probably near as often as I used to do other stuff that we had. But it really just kind of depends on how big is your hard drive. And if your hard drive is small, you're going to want to keep your media down to more of a bare minimum. If your hard drive space is large, you might be able to store some stuff, but you definitely don't want to just import media and forget about it. Over time, that will really hurt your operating. To me, and I've never heard ProPresenter say this, but to me, what I've always just found is ProPresenter is having to pull the assets back in. So like it's
Mhm.
having to, every time you open it, pull those assets and know where they are in the document structure. And when you click on it, it's got to be ready to go jump to it. So I've just always found that to me, it makes sense knowing computers. Like, I don't want this machine to be running massive amounts of content. So an example of something was when I had an event come into the church that I helped serve in the fall of this year. They were coming in to do an event. I actually removed the folder structure from ProPresenter, offloaded all the content to a separate folder on the hard drive and saved it, and then just cleaned out and let them put in their own library into ProPresenter so that ProPresenter was only pulling what they needed to. Now, they ended up having an issue where they brought in a massive countdown that was a 15-minute countdown that was set up to be a huge
Mm.
file, like probably one of the largest files I've
Yeah,
seen, like a 30 gigabyte file. And it actually froze during the countdown. And I think the reason it froze was because one, you need to export content for what your screens are. If your screens are HD, there's no need to have 4K content. There's no need. Like it ain't
sure.
gonna convert it and magically look different. Like if it's an HD screen, you need HD resolution going out to it. You don't want to submit, lower resolution, but you don't need 4K content. And if you are
Mhm.
displaying 4K content, you need to make sure that your computer is capable to handle that. You're not maxing out outputs. You may need to have graphics cards separate from your computer to actually run that. So more than likely, you and your church, the church I'm helping with right now, does not have 4K screens, does not have a 4K setup. It's an HD setup. And so therefore, I'm always pulling stuff in an HD resolution. If I'm getting stuff that's in 4K and there's concern about how it's going to operate, I'll go into Final Cut or I'll go into Handbrake and I'll compress stuff out in a lower resolution. That way, I'm in essence helping trimline and kind of keep things as clean and lean as possible because you want things to be set
I've got
up.
two
Go ahead.
questions.
Yep, go ahead.
I got two questions that, as you were talking, that just kind of came to me. Question number one is there a file type um, that's better for ProPresenter, like a MOV file versus an MP4 file versus an AVI file? If anyone's still using AVI.
Yeah, so I have never used AVI. Back with ProPresenter 6, we found that MOVs, I believe, were the sweet file type. With 7,
Okay.
I've used MP4s or MOVs interchangeably. Um,
Mhm.
MP4s tend to be, and I mean, this would be where you could speak into Shake. I believe MP4s tend to be the most compressed, smallest file type usually.
Mhm.
MOVs in our world usually are higher quality. So if I'm wanting something to be the
Right.
highest quality, I may export out MOVs. But MOVs can get away from you because they can get super large. So MP4s usually are
Right.
your most compressed. So I usually will tend to use MP4s for pre-roll stuff, even worship backgrounds. Now, if I have a video that I want to export and show, like a bumper video or something, I may try to get an MOV for that. But those usually are interchangeable. I've never had any issue really with using either one of those. And if I have had issues, then oftentimes I just go in and re-export it, or I go in if it's having a trouble with that particular MOV. There's been a couple times where I've just converted it over to MP4, just to kind of just change it up. So, but I've used those interchangeably and not had any issue with 7. But MOVs tend to be your
Yeah, I
larger file
guess
types.
in my ProPresenter usage, I think that I've used mostly MP4s. Now, I was using an older version. I was using ProPresenter 6 for the most part. I think I used 7 a little bit. And I was in a kids ministry or a youth ministry environment, so the I didn't necessarily need like the sterling quality of an MOV.
Right.
Um, and then my second question is this: for people that maybe they've maxed out their hard drive space, does it make sense to use, or is it even possible to use uh, like a external hard drive for ProPresenter content?
Yeah. What I would say is a couple things with that. Yes, I think you should have an external hard drive. With 7,
Mhm.
Um, what I suggest is you don't run your software off of an external hard drive. So you shouldn't run your
Okay.
your whole entire ProPresenter setup off of that hard drive and try to pull like smart folders into that, because to me that just creates an area of slowness. So that what I use an external hard drive for is offloading content but keeping it nearby. So if you can hook up an
Mhm.
external hard drive and have it set, then periodically, once every 3 months, you could take your media library, which I'll show you guys. Um, your media library is found, which I'm actually potentially realizing I may need to actually create a different share screen here for you, because I'm saying that potentially I might have to. I have it set to go to my ProPresenter screen. Give me 1 second. Let me see if I can bring in um, my desktop for you guys. And
Whoa, we're in the
Well,
belly of
we're
the
in the belly of
beast.
the beast. Whoa, we're in the belly of the beast.
Wow.
Um,
Well, you know what? In the meantime, as you do that, let me just remind everybody really quickly that if you have any questions, like John Matt 5660, you can hit us up on YouTube. You can hit us up on the Church Visuals Facebook page, or you can email us directly at
at
propresenter at
churchvisuals.com, and we'll see your
churchvisuals.com, and we'll
message
see your
and
message
either
and either
reply to you there
reply to
on the
you
on that
there on
platform,
that
or
platform,
like we
or
did
like we did
here, we
we'll
here
answer
we
some of those
will answer some of
questions
those questions
live and in
live and
person
in
with
person
the
with the
ProPresenter Poppy
ProPresenter Poppy
himself.
himself.
Who and it looks like
Who
here
and it
we are.
looks like here we are. It
Looks like we made it.
made it. Oh, whoops!
Whoa,
There you go.
whoa.
Okay, is that better? Hopefully you can see that.
Okay, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
do you see the whole thing?
yep,
Okay.
yeah,
So what
yeah.
you can do is go to your documents, and the documents is where the ProPresenter library is kept. So that's a new feature with 7, is that the ProPresenter library is kept on your documents, in your documents folder, under the ProPresenter folder. This is where everything for ProPresenter, the configuration files, the libraries of content, of songs, the media library, the playlist, the presets, all your themes, everything is housed here. So you can go into your media library periodically and copy everything over onto a hard
Mhm,
drive
mhm.
and then clear it out. And you still have access to it on your external hard drive. You can bring stuff back in that you want, but it's cleared out from your library and it won't show up in your ProPresenter library. So
Does
that's what
ProPresenter
I.
does ProPresenter create a copy of whatever file you bring into it?
It doesn't create a copy. So if you bring a file in from the desktop, well, technically yes. I guess
Mhm.
what you're saying is yes. The answer is yes to that. If you have a file copied on your desktop and you import it into ProPresenter, that will move. They will put a copy in the folder in that document structure that I just showed you. So it'll copy that
Okay.
into that for you. So But that
Okay.
folder structure can be copied anywhere. So if you copy it to an external hard drive and then delete that stuff in that folder structure, it'll disappear from your library. It won't be in here anymore. And it'll still be accessible
Mhm.
because you can go to File, Import File, and you can select an external hard drive to do that with. So
Okay.
that's what I tell people all the time is use an external hard drive to offload content. But I know how important it is to sometimes you don't want to offload content too quickly and like be, well, it's back at my
Mhm.
desk and I don't have access to it on Sunday morning. You may need it on
Right.
Sunday morning because it may be like, well, that background, we want to use that background. So I would say make sure that you have an external hard drive plugged in your computer for backing up when you're ready to back stuff up. But then it's still there. You can still pull it. You can still access it really quick. And then over time, take that hard drive and, maybe once it fills up, swap it out with another and start storing those as backups for you. I always would back up um, every single Sunday. I would back up my playlist. So I would actually export out my playlist
Oh, really?
as a backup,
Okay.
just so that I had it in case I. And there were a couple times where I was asked, "Hey, can you go back to that event we did and pull that file that
Mm.
we did?" And I actually had the media with it and all that. So if you hit desktop, export like I just did, and you hit include media
Mhm.
with presentations, now I can export that whole playlist with the media, and it'll export that to wherever I want. So I would always use an external hard drive to save every single service I did. For for some of you, maybe you're in kids ministry, that may not make a whole lot of sense. Things are changing every week. You may not need to do that. But where that was helpful was like in adult worship settings where maybe we did a special event. If I'm saving every single thing that we do and I'm storing it on a hard drive, there are potential times where someone may come back and say, "Hey, we did that special event 2 years ago. We sang that arrangement of that song with that video. We can't seem to find that video. Do you have it?" And you import that playlist
Mhm.
back in, and there's your video for it. So,
Have you ever had a situation where you boot up ProPresenter and all the files are gone and you have to go back to a folder like that?
I have rarely had that happen. It's happened a couple times where, yeah, you have a catastrophic failure, and because
Mhm.
you stored to a external hard drive, you were saved because,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, periodically, like
That's how.
what's great about that library I showed you is I'll do this a lot now, at the church that I'm helping with currently. About every 6 months, I take that folder, that whole entire ProPresenter folder, and I save it to an external hard drive. Because then, if there's ever a
Mhm.
failure, I can go back to that point. So it's almost like a time machine backup where I can say, well, it was working at this point.
Yeah.
So if something happened, I can always revert back to that point. Um, so depending on how large your
Sure.
library is, so like with what John was asking, if your library is never been cleaned and it's hundreds of gigabytes, you probably got to clean that down first before you can consider exporting that every week. Mine is like 25
Mhm.
gigabytes. So I have a, terabyte hard
Can you
drive that,
show us, Steve, one more time?
yeah, go ahead.
Can you show us how to clear out the library?
How to clear out. Yeah, yeah, let's do that. So if
Yeah.
I want to clear out my worship background library, what I can
Mhm.
do is come over and let's say for our purposes, I'm just going to select a few. I'm not going to clean everything, but let's say that
Sure.
if my computer will give it a minute to respond here, I don't know what it's doing. Poor
I told you
babies.
not to use PCs anymore, Steve.
Yeah, you don't get me started on that. Don't get me started on PCs. Well, dang, guys. I don't know why it's beach ball in here. Here, stand by. Let me let me quit it, and I'll come back into it. Oh,
Like that. Sometimes Even the ProPresenter Poppy
Well,
himself
hopefully,
deals with ProPresenter issues from time to time.
let's just say this in case anyone's watching this and they go, "Oh, that should be happening." Well, I'm running like 20 different things right now, so don't ever run OBS
Right.
with your ProPresenter stuff on a Sunday.
Right.
That's a recipe to. I'm overloading this machine. So, okay, can you see it now?
I mean, really, you shouldn't be running anything else
Anything
with
else? No,
ProPresenter.
you should just be running ProPresenter. So this is a great thing to say that you should
Right.
not have 10 windows open with all these desktop things. Like, no, just run ProPresenter only. So that's part of my issue. So here's the window back open.
Yeah.
If I have the backgrounds, and I'm ready to start clearing out some of my New Year's content because it's not New Year's anymore. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to
Sure.
select these items, and I can now hit delete, and it will say delete queues
Okay.
or move to trash. Deleting the queues only is going to delete the items from this bin, but it's going to leave the file in the media library, which means that it will still take up space on your hard drive. That's not what I would
So
suggest you do.
so if you've deleted a queue, how but you did so you deleted the queue but not the file, but you need to delete the file. Where do you go to find that?
That's in that file structure that I just showed. So if you go to that documents
Okay.
folder
Yeah.
and then ProPresenter and
Yep.
then media and then within that
Got it.
media folder there will be your files. So if you hit move to trash, if you hit
Ah.
move to trash, that's actually removing it from
Yeah.
the computer and putting it in the trash bin, and it's removing it from your media bin as well. So it's doing both of those at the same
And
time.
in this case, it's only deleting that duplicate file that it created, right? It's not deleting the original file that you had on your
Right. If you
computer.
had one on the desktop, it would not be deleting that. It would just be deleting the file within the ProPresenter
Okay.
structure. So if you've
Okay.
left that file on your desktop, it'll still be there. If you have not, if you already deleted it off your desktop and you want to save it, then that's where deleting queues might be helpful because it leaves it there. But
Sure.
it's kind of hard because if you hit the delete queue option, it goes away from your ProPresenter window. You don't see it anymore. So then if you go in and just delete your library or something at some point, you'll delete that by accident. So that's where I always suggest if you are trying to save something, then back up your media library or go in and grab that file and back it up, and then you've got it on an external hard drive. So,
What's the oldest file that you have backed up, would you say? You're a tech
um,
guy, so I bet it's like something from the 80s.
well, so for that time that I was on staff at the church that I help now, we backed up every single Sunday's set of playlists. So I had that for 5 years running. So every
Okay.
5 years. Now, then when I left, they stopped doing that. As I've come back, I've not done that due to just the situation of storage. They're not in the space. They're not in the situation where they necessarily want to back that up like that ever. So what I've gone to is the
Okay.
more backing up my library once every 6 months, and at that point, saving stuff that I need and then offloading it. And then usually after the course of a year or two, um, I'll delete again. So I really have kind
Okay.
of gone away from that just because the church doesn't want to spend the storage cost, which it does cost some. Um,
Yeah.
so it's just the dependent of what your church wants to do um, and some of that.
Because I guess you're dropping it into a Google Drive or a Dropbox or something long term if you wanted to.
Yeah, so I use Google Drive. I actually use Dropbox for syncing. So Dropbox is constantly running syncing
Hmm.
between my machines, and then external hard drive is my 6 month pull off. So every 6 months, I'm pulling everything
Okay.
off of the Dropbox, everything off of my ProPresenter machines to back it up to a physical hard drive that I carry in my backpack. So it's kind of Dropbox is my
Sure.
instantaneous sync, my instantaneous backup, my instantaneous storage method, and then my hard drive is my periodic offload method. So
Yeah.
one other
Wow.
thing that might be helpful. So we talked about ProPresenter booting slowly, performing slowly. Yeah, the amount of media that you
Mhm.
have in your library is key. But you just saw there, like we just talked about, don't run multiple things on your machine. That just is a recipe for
Yeah,
ProPresenter to
for
fail.
sure.
In our situation, we're live. I can fix it real quick. Um, we'll run it. We'll run it harder than we would. But on a Sunday, I always like to say is I want to make it as easy and as smooth as possible. I don't want to give any sort of situation for ProPresenter to have to like hiccup. So here's how crazy that is. So I run every single video 2 to 3 times before we actually start a service. So every background, I click it multiple times on a Sunday morning as I'm checking through stuff. Every video, I'm firing it and making sure it fires, and then I'm clipping to the end and making sure that it ends well. And I'm doing that because I want to see that ProPresenter has fired that video multiple times with no issue. Because in my mind, this may not be accurate.
Hmm.
People may be against it, but to me, I'm like, if I fired it multiple times, it's accessed that memory multiple times that morning. If it
Yeah,
fails, then it's not a me issue. It's a ProPresenter issue or it's a computer issue, and we can figure out what that is.
sure.
But if you have not touched the file for weeks and then you just go access it, I've found that you potentially are getting yourself a situation where ProPresenter hasn't accessed the file and then it just hiccups. So I just have always gotten into the flow of teaching my teams that I work with access the file. You're probably going to do a run through on a Sunday morning. Just hit every single video and make sure it fires. You're going to do an audio check. Just go ahead and fire the video and run it through the whole way and check every single video as best you can.
Steve, I don't know that you and I would have gotten along in a ProPresenter situation because there there's more than one time where I would be in the middle of a service and I would see kind of knowing what's coming up. I think like, oh, I bet I could make a loop for this segment coming up. And so on more than one occasion, I'm in service just like rendering out a quick 30-second loop, dropping it in ProPresenter, and just hoping it fires when we start.
Well, you and I would have gotten along, but I also in that situation I always tell people I tell my volunteers it's not your fault if it fails. Like it's just not because
Yeah,
that's last minute.
right.
So
That's the risk.
I always told
Yeah,
my team like we're gonna do whatever it takes. So when someone there were times where someone walked up the steps with a video to play
right.
during the sermon and it was the first song. So I got that multiple
Mhm.
times. Um, what I think I tried to tell people was you're potentially setting yourself up to potentially do something crazy. So that example that I
Sure.
told you about that countdown, I don't think that countdown had been fired that morning. It had been fired 24
Okay.
hours before, and a bunch of other media had been loaded in, and a bunch of stuff had been changed. But I don't think it had been fired, and I don't think it had been fired the whole way through, and I don't think it had been scrubbed through. And so, what I have just
Yeah.
found is when you're dealing with a large file that's potentially a 15-minute long video, man, play that sucker multiple times and fire it, and you're probably going to get through better than if you just load that and just hit play and hope it plays. So 30-second loops, yeah, I mean, I think that's not uncommon. And you most ProPresenter guys who
Yeah.
potentially probably do the same thing. I don't think that's. I mean, because the fact that I'll show you guys like you can set up um, playlists that are smart playlists routed to a specific spot on your drive. So you could set up a Dropbox, playlist or a playlist on your documents folder that's like saved, and whenever someone drops a file in there, it shows up on your screen. That's part of ProPresenter's like setup. So you can do that. I think sometimes if you depend on that so much to like never run things before an event, you set yourself up to
Yeah.
potentially cause your computer or ProPresenter to hiccup. And so I just always like, as far as tips for running smoothly and performing at peak performance, I just always tried to clean everything up to just what do I need, not trying to keep every single person's library. I'm not trying to keep the kids' ministry library and the student ministry library all in there. They each have their machines. We all have a different thing for our specific venue. I'm trying to keep that as clean and mean as possible. I'm restarting my machine every Sunday morning to make sure it's fresh, to make sure it's had its good night's sleep. It's ready to go. I'm doing everything I can to make sure that I'm set up for hey, the machine's been restarted. everything was fired, things were working well, things were functioning properly, and I'm confident when I start this service that we're going to be fine.
Well, so running ProPresenter on a Sunday morning is almost like having an elite athlete on your team, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
You want to make sure it's got the right diet. You want to make sure it's warmed up,
Yeah, you don't
you
want Michael
know?
Phelps to just jump in the pool and start swimming. You want him to have
Right.
done his laps and ate his breakfast and be ready to go,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
I like your
That's
connection there.
a beautiful
This,
thought.
Athlete. I
ProPresenter
like how
is
you
like a
connected
member of
athlete
your
because
team.
I like how you connected athlete because the Olympics are coming up in the summer. Is that what you were doing there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's
yeah,
why.
that's great.
Well, but also I was thinking about the Pittsburgh game tonight that I'm really
Oh,
excited.
look at you! Look
So
at you bringing it
that's
back.
part. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, sweet.
Well, Steve, we do. I had a question for you, but I wonder, are we running out of time? Do we have time to get into it? Because when I when I brought up what I wanted to talk about, you got really excited about it.
Oh, I did get really excited about it. That's everything ProPresenter excites me, man.
Yeah,
That's ProPresenter Poppy, man. It's just everything ProPresenter is like
that's
tickles me, man.
that's right. So, do you want to get into it now, or do you want to hold off?
Maybe we'll hold off. So we kind of teased that we're going to talk
Okay.
about macros. I think that was your question, right? Is
Yeah. Okay.
macros.
Okay. Yeah, that's
So why
the
don't we
question.
tell? Why don't
And
we plan on doing
so,
it
okay,
next week? And then if there's any other questions, we can get
right.
those locked in.
And just so everybody knows, when I said, "Hey, I had some questions about macros," your response was, "I could talk about macros all day."
I could talk about macros all day because that gets me jazzed, man. Even more than storage and keeping your library like clean and mean. Dude, macros are like the new feature of
That's your jam.
Macros are like the new feature of ProPresenter that just got me tickled pink, man. So yeah,
So give us a little teaser. What is a macro?
teasers. Okay,
Just a
so just a quick tease. So macros are
yeah.
shortcuts to trigger multiple commands in ProPresenter. And then here's what I'd
Oh,
say for another teaser. I'd say this. I think macros give you the ability to set your volunteer team up with more success than you've ever been able to have before. Macros are a
wow.
feature that ProPresenter 7 came out with that to me, the church that I serve with, we use it. It's the most used new feature of ProPresenter 7 that we've ever used. That and
Wow.
along
There we go.
that and along with looks, which we can talk about that next. But macros really are a game changer, and so yeah, that's why I could talk about them all day. So you know,
Wow, that's hey,
well,
I am pumped. You're pumped, so I'm pumped.
yeah. So well, yeah, we covered a lot. So obviously, like
Yeah,
again, I love that John asked this question, and if more people have questions, we'd love for you to submit those to us. I'm going to throw up
right,
here how you can do that. So you can email us at propresenter@churchvisuals.com. That email comes to me and Sheik, and we'll look at those comments and we'll get those questions answered for you. You can drop comments in the YouTube video as well, and we'd be happy to look at those. If you need something, urgent, like the Pro Presenter at Church Visuals is probably the best route because you can tell me, hey, I'm really struggling with this. I'd really love help to figure this out this week. Shoot it over to me.
right,
Let's talk. Let's see what we can figure out. If you drop, comments, if it's something that you want us to cover in a future episode, I think next week we're going to cover macros. But from there out, man, we really would love this to be something that serves you and the collective community
mhm,
that we're all a part of. And so, if there's topics you want us to cover, hey, I'd love to do an in-depth dive into this, or I'm struggling with how to do this, or I'm struggling with how to import songs, or there's other things that we haven't even tapped that are on our list. But if there's things that you
right,
would like us to put to the front and rise to the top that would help you in your ministry now, we want that to be something that's hopefully helpful and serves you. Because really that's our goal, right? Like our goal is to really just help you in visually communicating the gospel well each and every single week. And right
Right.
now, we're the tool, the medium that we're talking about using this with is ProPresenter. So
Yeah. Yeah. And it's I think that um these conversations helps you maximize what you can do with ProPresenter,
right.
instead of just kind of being stuck on the surface level of what you can do. You can really kind of get into it and, impress your lead pastor, all that stuff, and
Well,
getting
dude.
good with your executive leadership.
That's on my horizon. That's like if we don't have anyone that speaks up after macros, maybe a couple sessions in, I got a tip for everyone to help you wow your pastor and your entire team with how quickly you can pull scriptures and throw them up on screen. So
Wow. Whoa,
yeah.
should we do like a Bible verse shootout?
Oh yeah, like a sword drill. Ooh, that's a good. I should have
Sword
you.
drill, that's what it
Oh, I
is.
should have you. Oh, dude, that's what we'll do. But when we do that episode,
Yeah.
I'll have you
Okay.
download ProPresenter, and you and I will have a competition, and I'll we'll see who can pull the scripture the quickest. This will be fun.
I love it. Love
So
it.
sweet.
You know what? And guess what? I know ProPresenter even more than I know football. So
I mean,
imagine.
thank the Lord for that. I mean, that's a good thing because you know nothing about football.
Steve, I know football. I know everything about football.
You know nothing about football. But
Ask me a question. Ask
I
me a
don't want
question
to
about
trash
football.
you in front of all of our friends, man. Just I don't know. I don't do that, man. But you don't know as much as you think. People think you might.
Steve, I am a servant of football. You know what I mean? Yeah,
Servant of
I don't know what
football.
that means. Um,
Well, enough about football.
enough about football.
Sweet.
Well,
Well,
Steve, I guess that wraps up another
ProPresenter,
episode of.
yeah, ProPresenterChurchVisuals.com. Feel free to email us,
Yep.
comment, and what words of advice do you have as we head out, Shake?
You know what? Here's what I'll say. Here's some advice for you, because what I love about football is the way that football can relate to every area of, and ultimately, I think that what sets a good team apart from a great team is one word: strategy.
Yeah, I don't know really what I got from that, but
Right?
that's cool. That's cool. That's cool.
Oh,
Strategy.
right?
Uh,
I did it again, Steve. I blew your mind again.
yeah, yeah. Well, we'll go with that. My mind's blown. Oh man, I'm thankful for you, bro. Thank you for dropping that wisdom bomb on me. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. That's what I'm here for.
Well, if you have any tips for Shake on football, drop those in the comments below. If
Yes,
you're
if you have any questions about football,
yeah,
need
because
some
this is
clarity on football related issues.
totally a football podcast. So yeah, totally cool. So
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
or
Yeah,
ProPresenter. If you have stuff for ProPresenter, talk to us about that for
right.
sure, and we'll leave the football stuff
Yeah,
to others. So well,
on my other
sweet.
podcast. Yeah. Yeah,
So
we did it again, Steve. The
next
Pro
week,
Presenter Poppy.
the ProPresenter Poppy and the ProPresenter. What do we call you? We got to get a nickname for you, man. The ProPresenter Jedi, the ProPresenter
Oh, I like
Padawan,
that.
the ProPresenter Padawan,
Okay, okay, I like that. I like that.
the PPP, the ProPresenter
Yeah,
Padawan,
yeah. The PPP.
so
Yeah,
through PPP squared, ProPresenter Poppy and the ProPresenter Padawan.
right.
Yeah,
I like that.
yeah, yeah.
Excuse me.
Nice. Well, we'll have to see if it
All right.
sticks.
Well, we did it again.
We did it again. We'll see you next week on Monday. I know that we were
Monday.
later this week, but we should be getting into more of a rhythm. Next week should be probably more midday when we'll get rolling. We'll schedule that out and drop out that link so you guys can plan for that here in the next couple of days. And let us know if you have any questions. We would love to serve you.
That's right.
Sweet.
Well, Pro Presenter Poppy.
Peace.
Peace out.